Hi guys, today I'm going to be telling you about all the books that I read in March. So for this month I read about 13 books, which is really good for me. Usually I read maybe 5 to 8, so I had a really good month. The first series that I read was the Selection series by Kiera. I basically listened to a book a day because I borrowed them on the Libby app and they were really interesting. I went into them completely blind. I just heard good things, so I decided to give it a shot. And I was actually very surprised by how much I liked it. I thought I would probably only get through 2 out of the 5 books, and because I went into it blind, when I found out book 4 and 5 was not in America's perspective, I was so shocked, but it was a very nice surprise. Out of the first 3 books, which is in America's perspective, book 3 was my favorite. I really like how they wrapped up the entire conflict and plot. And then out of book 4 and 5, book 5 was my favorite because I really enjoyed Edelin's character and I really liked watching her growth and seeing how her story wrapped up, and I thought it was very nice. So my star ratings for each book would be The Selection 3 stars, The Elite 2.75. I didn't really like that one that much. The Heir would be 3 stars. The One was 3.5, and then The Crown was 4 stars. So the next book that I read was Cursed by Marissa Meyer. I gave this one 3.75 and I finished the Gilded Duology. I read the first book earlier this year. The story was not at all what I thought it would be when I first started this series, which was not necessarily a bad thing, but it just took me by surprise. I really enjoyed the fact that it was a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. I thought that was a really unique idea, and I enjoyed hearing that story because that's something that I grew up listening to, so I really enjoyed that retelling of it, and I thought it was very well done and unique, which I really did enjoy. The other thing I really enjoyed about this series was that it felt very fairy tale, especially the Grimm brothers fairy tales. Like, it had a very good way of getting you to feel those same feelings that when you were reading the original stories. It was creepy, a little bit gross, a little bit too gross for me sometimes because I'm squeamish, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the amount of fairy tale that the book invokes. The next book that I read was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, and I gave that about 3.5 stars. I didn't really know what to expect going into it because I'd never read a cozy fantasy before, but I really did enjoy it. I really loved Emily's character. I loved how quirky and unique she was, and then I also loved the love interest, Wendell Bambley, I think. I really loved his character. I thought he was so funny. The love confession is one of the best love confessions that I've read. I think it was hilarious, and I really did enjoy this book. And I'm very excited for the sequel to come out so we can continue on with the story. That being said, I did listen to this book while I was working, so about halfway through I did kind of zone out a little bit and I missed some of the plot points. So she kind of appeared in places and I didn't know why or how she got there, so I'm definitely going to have to re-listen to the book before the sequel comes out. In general, this book also just made me understand the appeal of cozy fantasy and why everyone is raving about it so much, so that was fun, and I definitely get the appeal and will be adding a lot more cozy fantasy to my TBR. Next, I read So the next series I read was Hush Hush by Bella Fitzpatrick. I actually did read the first book when I was around 12 years old and I really liked it, but when I started book 2, I just was not into it, so I stopped. And I've been wondering for all these years how it ends, so I decided to reread book 1 and then pick up the series and finish it. I'm happy that I did, but I don't think it was worth it. Rereading it made me realize that all of the characters are kind of just very annoying, but I do see why younger me would have liked it. The main character very much gives off not like the other girls, in my opinion, and when I was 12, I was going through my not like other girls phase, so you know, there was that. The actual plot was really interesting. I really enjoyed learning about the angels, the fallen angels, the people who were birthed by fallen angels, that's name I don't remember, the conflict, how it was going to be resolved. There was like a supposed war that was supposed to happen. So seeing how all that got resolved and what the end is was pretty interesting. There were definitely some things that happened that I was not expecting at all. But overall, again, not my favorite. I just wanted to ease the curiosity. The one thing about the plot I didn't like though was the romance. The characters were annoying. The first half of book 1 was just Patch sexually harassing any woman that comes up to him, it felt like. I just didn't like it. They broke up, then got back together, and then they broke up, then they got back together. Break up, get back together, break up, get back together, break up, get back. It's such a frustrating romance plot, and I think that's also why I put it down when I was 12. So I didn't like it, I'm sorry. Ratings though, I gave Hush Hush a 3-star. I gave Crescendo a 1.5. I gave Silence 2.75, and I gave Finale 2.5 stars. The final series that I read in the month of March was the Bridge Kingdom series, or the Duology. So the one thing about this book that confused me was the fact that it was fantasy. I'm pretty new to the fantasy genre, so the only other fantasy books that I've read has magic, it has non-human characters, and all this kind of stuff. But for this book, the only thing that was fantasy was the actual world that it was set in, but other than that, all of the people were basically just normal humans, and that threw me for a loop. I spent basically the first half of book 1 waiting for something magical to happen, and it never came, so that did confuse me. At first I didn't like it, but now that I finished it, I definitely don't mind it. It was an interesting read, but that was just something that threw me off. Overall, it was a pretty good series. I did enjoy reading it. I more so enjoy it now that some time has passed versus when I was actually reading it. This definitely won't be in my like top 5 fantasy series that I've ever read, but I do enjoy the series and its time, and I might even continue the series later on, but for right now I'm content just finishing the duology. One thing that I really enjoyed about this world is the cultures and the different settings and different places. It felt very realistic and it was nice to read about. I also really enjoyed that there was a desert, there was a rainforest, there was basically bits and pieces of everything, and I just really enjoyed that part of the book. And the descriptions of the worlds were really good, so it was so easy to imagine and create those mental images, which I really appreciated. I did, however, have a few issues. It felt very insta-love. The character depth was not what I necessarily wanted, and then I thought the pacing of the book was a little weird, but I do go more in depth about that in my reading review and thoughts video. So for the Bridge Kingdom, I gave it 3 stars. And then for the Traitor Queen, I gave it 3.75 stars. Like I said, overall, I really did enjoy it, and I may even pick up this series later on in the year, maybe next year. But for right now, I am pretty content with where it stopped. But yeah, that was my books for March. Did you guys read any of them? Did you like them? Do you disagree with some of my thoughts or opinions? Let me know.